Hi, welcome back to another video. So, if anybody's got a turbo-powered vehicle and they have ever been curious as to how much boost your vehicle produces, today I'm going to show you how to put together your own boost gauge pod. So, this is a universal item and it can be used on any vehicle. So, stay with the video and you'll find out how to put one together. So here in front of us we have my two Saabs. Got my 9.3 turbo and we've got my 900 turbo. Now these both have boost gauges fitted. So this is a factory gauge. Integrated with the fuel and temperature gauge. Just sits there, needle moves in a left-hand direction on the overrun. When you're off the throttle, when you accelerate and the boost comes on, it climbs up just towards the end of the orange and peaks into the red occasionally. So on this one, it's just a vacuum operated mechanical boost gauge which works off this pipe here. Runs down into the inlet manifold on that T-piece and just works off manifold pressure. So turbo spools up, forces air into the inlet manifold there, pushes it through this pipe work up into the back of the dashboard and operates the gauge. So on the 9.3 we also have a boost gauge. Again, factory boost gauge. Operates the same as it does on my 900. So you accelerate, this one goes well into the red because it's got a remap on it. It's running a lot more boost than standard. Tick over, it's just like hovering into the white, and when the car's on overrun and you've got negative pressure in the manifold, it goes into the rest position there. So the difference between this one and the one on the 900, whereas this one isn't mechanical, it's electronic. See, when I put the ignition on, there you go, it fires up into the rest position. Ignition off, goes down again. So this doesn't work purely off vacuum into the back of the gauge. Just take us around to the front of the car. Various vacuum pipes. If I wanted to, I could wire in a mechanical boost gauge, but this one works from a signal sent to the manifold pressure sensor which sits there. That in turn sends the pressure it's measuring into the engine management system, and then that sends a signal via another computer up into the gauges, and that's how it measures it. Well, that's how it reads it to you. So similar principle, but this goes through a system to get the results to your, when you're driving. Right, so on with the video, and I'll show you how to put together a universal gauge pod. Right, welcome to the video. We're going to get started building this universal gauge pod. So first of all, I bought one of these. I don't know how to pronounce it. I've heard it pronounced as time, but it's spelt tin. I think they're pretty good quality boost gauges, and they do other gauges as well. So we've got this one, it goes up to 2 bar. Some of them go up to 1 bar. I did buy a 1 bar boost gauge many years ago for my Saab 900 and attached it to it, and it just went off the scale, so it was completely useless. So 2 bars plenty. That attaches in the back, pushes into this pre-made pod, which is perfect size for this, and you do 1/8mm nut there and another one. Tightens up a bracket and it pulls it and draws it tight to there. So you just use a spanner on that and you just tighten it up basically. Pretty simple task. So not too tight so it buckles the bracket, but just enough so it holds it tight enough so it doesn't spin around or move around. It's been handled or used. Okay, so tools. We have a pair of snips or side cutters, whatever people want to call them, a Phillips screwdriver. This is a Wera one, which is very nice quality. soldering iron, gas powered, a pick which I'm going to be used as a bradawl to push some holes into the base plastic for the gauge, which is where this is going to sit atop of, and then underneath that you have some non-slip matting which is going to go on the underside of this to make contact with the dashboard so it doesn't slide around all over the place when in operation. I've got a step drill bit here to drill holes in the plastic cover here, so when I fit the switch, which is this little thing here, it's a tiny little rocker switch, that is going to operate the bulb which comes with the gauge kit, so if you're using it at night it will light it up and you can see what you're doing. Along to operate that is a 9-volt battery, Energizer one, which is like pretty decent quality. A universal 9-volt battery terminal with 2 wires which will go via the switch to the bulb, and this will sit inside the pod and all be sealed up out of the way and hopefully look quite neat afterwards. I have some flux, some solder, some flux, a small electric drill, screwdriver type thing, a 2-part bonding agent, which is made by a company called Innertech in the UK, with a gun that goes with it. So I have the agent and the hardener meet together. These special nozzles come out the end. You don't have to trim them off or anything, but they're single use only, and that bond like plastic. It's better than Araldite. Some silicone hosing which will connect the gauge to the engine, and some wheel weights, which you may wonder why I got some wheel weights here, but this thing isn't very heavy, and if you're cornering fast or whatever, it might decide to slide or fall off the dashboard. So I'm going to attach these inside of the gauge pod somehow, and that'll give it a bit of ballast to hold it flush to the dash so it won't slide around or tip over or anything like that. Right, so the first thing I'm going to do is actually zoom in a bit, see if we can get a closer look of what we're doing. Right, so as I say, pretty simple. I've got the gauge attached to the pod. Now I'm wanting to turn it on and off via this micro switch, this little rocker switch thing here. So that needs to be put into the gauge cluster somehow. I think probably the best place is going to be, let's have a look, probably the middle back here. Yeah, so that is basically going to be just there. So I shall just mark this. By the way, this isn't going to be any kind of accurate workmanship. It's going to be high quality workmanship, but not like massively accurate, because at the end of the day it is just a universal gauge pod for testing and stuff. It's not something designed to be permanently fixed to the vehicle. So I'm reckoning that's about the middle there. Okay, right, so take the step drill. Should start drilling. Right, what size does this have to be? I would say this is going to be 14mm. So I'm up to, on the step drill, 10mm there. Bit more. That's 12mm. Just too small, so next stage, just very carefully go up to the 14mm. So I'm not sure if it's 14 or 13mm. It must be 14. There you go. Just taking it slow on the last bit because I don't want it to shoot through and go up to 16 because you know you're stuffed then otherwise. Right, so that should just push into the back there. There you go. It's quite neat. So there's your rocker switch for the lights. Okay. It's not massively tight in there, so I think I'll use a bit of bonding agent on that just to secure it tighter. Okay. Right, it's going to tidy some of this debris away, and I'll come straight back. Okay, the next part I'm going to do is just put a small hole to allow the vacuum hose to run through. So that should just be in the back. I don't know why that step drill is so blunt. I probably overused it at work. Come on. Just a little bit more. I'll run it through from this side. Okay, that fits. So it goes through there, straight into the back of the gauge. The vacuum section is. There was like a T-piece that came with it with a restrictor in it, and it's supposed to stop the gauge quivering as the car's running. But I tried it with it and tried it without, and it didn't make any difference. And there's 3 ports on it, so I swapped it around. It didn't make any difference because I noticed that on the one I made years ago when the car was running on tick over, the gauge would be like quivering with the engine note. The vacuum in the manifold, but it's no big deal. It's just a characteristic of it, I think. I don't know if it's because it's a poor quality gauge or if it's just what they do the aftermarket ones, because I know the one on the car doesn't do that, but they're made by VDO, the mechanical one on the Saab, and if you buy an aftermarket VDO type one, they're a lot of money compared to these. I think it was about 30 quid or something. I'll put the prices on the screen of how much each item costs and what it costs to make a kit like this. Right, so that's that done. I should just dust up these bits here. The next bit I'm going to attempt is to solder on some wiring for the lamp. Right, so I'm running a negative feed straight to the bulb, and it's going to have a break in the circuit on the switch for the positive side. So let's get that in there. So heat up the soldering iron first. Right, let's see if this soldering iron's warm enough. Oh yeah, this is going to be fantastic. Obviously it isn't. Oh god. I'll get that to sit upright. There we go. Okay, I've fed the flux and the solder into there and it got in there eventually. This camera is not the best, but you can just see there, it's got into it. So the next step is joining it to the switch with these two here. Right, so have to put these two wires through here. Oh, wrong one, that one there. Okay, there's one on there, successfully joined. Let's do the other one. Bend that out of the way slightly, a bit more space to work with. As you may be able to tell, I'm not a professional electronics guy by any stretch of the imagination. It's just something I've always done over the years out of necessity and curiosity. So I've just practiced and whatever I've done seems to have worked, so I'll just carry on doing it how the way I do it. Right, okay, so that's soldered on there fine. So that will go back in there now. Switch it to the off position. Plug this battery on. I'll just zoom out a little bit there. Okay, if I put this battery on now, flick that switch. Oh yeah. See that working? Perfect. So that will light up the gauge at the back. You'd normally put a 12-volt power source to it from the vehicle, but because this is a temporary fitment one used for testing and stuff, it's not really viable to do that, so that's why I've wired it in via the battery. Okay, let's put that back together. Okay, protective cover on there. That's on there. Off. Just put that in there, right, so that works pretty well. It lights up green, by the way, the white bits, so it just came like that. I quite like it though, it's pretty cool. Okay, so Next bit after this is going to be, I think, I'll take the battery off for the time being. I shall be measuring up the base plate, which is this here. Shall I just show a section of video of how I created this? So that'll just go on there, like so. Which way round did I want it? That way round. Stab that pick into there, make sure it's in the same position. Do it this side. There you go, 2 small indents, one there and there. So I'll just run these through a little bit to enlarge them. So this is polyurethane foam, even though it's like rock hard plastic. It's like a high density foam. Just got sheets of it off eBay, but it does the job. Perfect for what I was doing. Comes as a sheet and you cut it down to what size you want. So I shall stick the weights on the insides, screw the base plate to this, and that's basically it. Just route the pipe through the back and glue it. I'll just show where I'm up to. So that is packed full of wheel weights. The battery's in there. It's not going to arc out and anything. It's insulated. Bonding agent on the back of the vacuum hose and the switch to secure it in place. The non-slip rubber mat, I've used a bonding agent and a spatula to smear the agent on the back of this panel. Then the non-slip mat goes in the back of it. So that's now ready to line up to this. That needs to be pushed into there. And then just need to push the screws into it now. So I shall attempt to do that. A couple of Phillips screws from Worth, because we have some Worth screws, which is a German company. All different sizes and they tend to work pretty well. All black in colour. Let's see what's with this. Second, what's going on here? Okay, it's all together as one now, so that's how that works. That is the finished product. So boost gauge, nice bit of ballast to it, non-slip mat, take your vacuum hose, put it onto the inlet manifold somewhere on the car, place that on the dash and you have yourself a boost controlled gauge which can say how much boost you're running. So let's see what it looks like when it's lit up. Yeah, that's pretty good. Okay, thank you all for watching. I shall put it in the vehicle and take it for a test drive and see what it's running boost wise. Let's go for the third gear pull.